Japan is one of my favorite countries to visit, but there's a few things I wish I knew before coming there. Japan is such a different place from Europe or the US, like in a good way. So if it's your first time going there, you will discover so many things you've never seen before. And you know, I've been to Japan quite a few times and I keep discovering stuff when I go there. My best tip for you is that if you're confused, if you don't know what to do, which will definitely happen in Japan, just look around you and try to see what other people are doing and do the same. Like, there's so many little things that are different, like just like walking in the street or paying for groceries or taking the metro. All of this is probably super different from what you're used to, and I'm gonna cover that in this video. I've also found that people in Japan are super nice and were super happy to help me if I look lost or you know, I look like I didn't understand something. So in any case, even if you're bound to not understand some things, going to Japan is always a super fun experience. However, one thing I got totally wrong and I still cringe at when I think about it is how to handle money in Japan, and in particular tipping. So where I come from, it's pretty common to, you know, when you're done with your meal, you just leave some cash on the table with a tip and then you just leave. Well, I do not recommend doing that in Japan. During my first trip to Japan, I went to a restaurant and I did just that, and the people ran after me to tell me that I had forgotten my money and looked super confused. And I've since then looked it up, and tipping is not a thing in Japan. And another thing you'll learn really fast in Japan is to bring cash. Even now, Japan uses quite a lot of cash. There's a lot of places that are cash only. So for example, in our first day in Tokyo during this trip, we were in a rush and wanted to take the metro, and when we saw the ticket vending machines, they only accepted cash, and obviously we had forgotten our wallet at the hotel, so we had to go back, get our cash, and then pay by cash. We didn't know yet that you could get a prepaid metro card, which is what I recommend doing. Also, I've found that even buying stuff in cash is a tiny bit different from what I'm personally used to. So check it out. Here, when we bought onigiri at the Tokyo train station, we had to put the cash in this little tray instead of handing it directly to the vendor. So that's also a small thing, and you'll get used to it super quickly when you go to Japan. Another thing I wish I knew before coming to Japan is that the public transportation system is one of the best in the world. You absolutely do not need to rent a car when coming to Japan, and it's also really hard for foreigners to rent a car because you not only need to have an international driving license, but you also need an official translation in Japanese to rent a car. This obviously happened to us. We had plans to do some kind of road trip and we obviously didn't have the paperwork, so we had to cancel our plans and do something else. However, you can go pretty much anywhere between cities by train because the train system in Japan is so good. It goes kind of everywhere, it's super fast, super convenient, and overall just a perfect experience. So I really recommend you try it. When you're inside the cities, the metro is really the way to go, especially in Tokyo, because taxis tend to be super expensive and not really necessary because the metro system is really good and quite enjoyable compared to other cities. Also, another thing you really need to know before coming to Japan is that Japan is one of the safest countries in the entire world. In all the times I've been to Japan, there's not a single one I felt unsafe, even walking alone late at night. It is so safe there that I've seen people leave their expensive computers to save a seat at a coffee shop and then leave and come back maybe 15 minutes later. I would never do that in Europe or the US. And I obviously still do not do that even in Japan because I'm not that trusting. Also, I found people to be way more respectful of other people than in Europe or the US. Like, for example, when you're waiting for trains, everyone waits in line, and people are way more mindful of other people in public transport or in the street. And I found that super enjoyable because you can just walk around, let your guard down, and enjoy your daily life knowing everything's gonna be fine. Tip number 5 is that the food is so good and will spoil you for life. So Japanese food is pretty popular abroad. Most of us have eaten the most famous Japanese dishes like sushi, the Japanese curries, and that type of stuff. However, the real deal in Japan is so much better, especially for the sushi. For me, it's so hard now to enjoy sushi anywhere else in the world. Even cheap sushi in Japan, like the one you can find at conveyor belts, which is around $1 to $1.50 per plate, is so much better than some other sushi around the world. I think the reason is because the ingredients are so much fresher here in Japan. Like, the rice is so much better and it's different from Europe or the US. The fish is so delicious, even in cheap places as well. Be ready to have your mind blown because the food is just so good. And to find good food, I usually just look around, see where there's a line of locals, and just go with it. Number 4 is use the convenience stores. They're so good. They have everything you need, from random things you forgot in your suitcase to a bunch of delicious food. Japanese convenience stores are just the best. They have the most delicious food ever. My personal favorite, you probably know it, is 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven in Japan is so delicious. Also, the food is pretty cheap. You can eat a nice meal for around $5, which is so nice when you're traveling to keep costs down, and also when you just want to eat in your hotel room and relax because you don't want to go out. 7-Eleven is here for you. So I really recommend you go on a convenience store spree. Here are my few tips. 7-Eleven is good for everything. You'll probably have a few 7-Elevens around you in your blog. We had around 3 different ones within a 1-minute walk from our hotel. Lawson has really good sweets. If you love sweets, you should go to Lawson. And then Family Mart, I found the bento boxes were pretty good there. That's one of my favorite things in Japan, and I wish other countries had such good convenience stores as well. But I found that, for example, if you're hungry at 2 a.m. in New York City, you do not want to go to 7-Eleven. It's not the same experience at all. Number 3 is that there are so many super cool hotels. So before planning your trip to Japan, spend a bit of time looking at hotels, because there's a bunch of very fun and cool hotels in Japan that are not more expensive than a regular hotel. So here are a few I stayed at. So obviously we have the Robo Hotel, which is fully automated and has this very realistic human-looking robots that do the check-in for you. Then there's beautiful traditional hotels with the tatami floors that look like an old-style Japanese home, and that I really love. And I do recommend checking out the neighborhood where you have all the love hotels, even though you're probably not gonna want to stay in one, because they're all super funny and they all have different themes. Like last time we were in Japan, we checked the French theme one for Bobby's video, which was super fun. And you know, even normal hotels can be pretty cool too in Japan. Like this time we stayed in the city center in the neighborhood of Akasaka, and our hotel was super nice and even had an onsen. So the onsen are the traditional Japanese hot baths, and so many hotels have them. So you're getting both a hotel and a spa that's included for the same price. We love that over here. And speaking of onsen, one thing I wish I knew before coming to Japan is to really take advantage of the onsen, but keep a few things in mind before going there. It's not just a hot tub, there's a bit more to it. So Japan is really huge on hot springs. That ranges from the beautiful natural hot springs you can imagine to, like, when we were in Osaka, we went to a hot spring theme park called Spa World. It has so many different floors and it can only be described as like the Disneyland of hot springs. So before you enjoy a really nice spa day in Japan, there's a few things to know. So you are separated by gender and you go in fully naked. That's usually a thing that can be confusing for some foreigners, but it's super normal and you'll get used to it. Also, I've heard that if you have tattoos, you need to cover them before going to the hot springs, but I don't have any, so it's not a problem for me. And before I tell you the actual most important thing you should know before coming to Japan, let me tell you about tip number 1, which is taking off your shoes at the right time. So if you're not used to it, it can be a bit of a habit to take at first, but in Japan, you take your shoes off for many different things. So obviously when you go to someone's home, but also in some bars and restaurants that have the tatami floors that I was telling you about, and also in many other places like some shrines, onsen, and that type of stuff. A very easy rule of thumb is that if you see a bunch of shoes outside, you should take off your shoes as well. For me, I love this one. I love taking my shoes off, especially when I'm in someone's home. I find that way better, and just, you know, seeing those movies where people keep their shoes on their beds really makes me super uncomfortable. And the main thing I want you to know before coming to Japan, and the thing that really transformed all my experiences there, is to try to discover the country through the eyes of a local. So when I travel somewhere, I always try to meet local people, because I find that way more cool to get to experience the everyday life of people who actually live in the country. And I found that it's the best way to discover the culture and have a little bit of fun and make new friends along the way. So we already had a few friends in Japan when we visited, and it was just so fun doing normal things with them, like going to an izakaya, which is the Japanese pub. But I found that people are super nice and friendly, and it's so easy to talk to random people over there if you're in the right place and are open to it. So I hope you enjoyed my little observations from going to Japan a bunch of times. And if you've been to Japan or you're Japanese, let me know what you think about these, and most importantly, let me know yours in the comments. Thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you soon.